Welcome to the I Hate Critics Movie Review Podcast. I'm professional film critic Sean Patrick. With me is Jeff.
Hello.
Jeff, where do they get your art?
JeffLassiter.com is my website. You can get links to all my stuff. I've got my Maxine piece that's up. Pretty excited. I already sold an 18 by 24 inch poster of it and got myself a t-shirt.
Very cool. Very, very cool. It's a great piece. It is beautiful.
Thank you.
Of course, you can find us on the various social medias, on Twitter and Facebook. Of course, the website, ihatecritics.net, where the website is hosted. The title got very real and personal this week, I guess. I don't know this for sure. I don't know where this came from. Some random person sent me an email with what looked like a clipping from a website that I can't find, and I'm not going to find it. It's fine. I don't care. But they sent me this thing saying that I was listed as one of the worst film critics online, and the show is called I Hate Critics, so I mean it's kind of like perfect. It's kind of like perfect marketing for us, except they didn't mention the podcast. Like, if you're going to do that, at least mention the podcast, guy. Come on. But the time you spent being angry listening to a podcast that you don't enjoy, because they trash the podcast audio and whatnot, and the time you spend listening to podcasts you don't enjoy and reading criticism you don't enjoy is time you could be spending with people you care about. Instead of maybe being angry at a stranger whose opinions you don't like, maybe just go be with your friends or family, or watch a YouTube video that makes you happy. Go listen to a song. Go have dinner or something. I don't know. I don't understand the level of personal hatred in this article was like, why does this guy does this guy know me? Like, if we met, did I cut him off in traffic? It was very personal. He really, really wanted to let me know he hated me.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about. It was very personal. And apparently has never listened to a podcast before, because that's just basically what people do, is they talk about shit and talk shit about shit.
And, I do the best I can with the audio. I know the audio quality isn't as good as it should be. I get it.
If people would just join the Patreon, we could afford better equipment.
There you go. Patreon.com and I Hate Critics on Patreon. There you go. You can join there. We'll get a full professional studio and it'll sound much better.
If you want us to sound like a perfectly produced podcast, then join the Patreon so we can get a studio and record together.
And by the way, you listened to the podcast, so you've contributed to us continuing to do this, because that's just another download. According to Apple, you just listened to the show, so that's time listened. That goes into our analytics.
Yeah.
So
get with the program, mija.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where this came from. I can't find it. It's weird. The email is so weird, such a weird quality that it looks like it came out of a newspaper.
Yeah, it's weirdly, it's justified, like a column.
Yeah.
When you sent me that clip, I was like, wait, this looks like a newspaper column from the 80s.
Yeah. And it's not online. I Googled the entire thing trying to see, is there anybody else who's just as bad as me, or am I the absolute worst? I wanted, I was curious.
Well, I guess you're just the worst. Embrace the suck.
He's a fan of the podcast because it's called I Hate Critics, and that if you hate critics, this is the show for you.
Hopefully. He hates you and you're a critic, so I guess.
Oh, you got to laugh at it, because what else are you going to do? What am I going to do? Get into a beef with some random person that I don't know? I have no interest in beefing with anybody. I just really like movies, and I happen to be a member of the Critics' Choice Association, which conveys a professional status. I've also been doing this for 20 years. And no, I don't get paid a lot for the online writing. But I do get paid for being a radio critic. I have multiple radio outlets where my criticism is heard. So, if you want to, he was very angry about me calling myself a professional film critic. And like, dude, I've been doing this for over 20 years and I've got multiple radio stations that carry my stuff. So I proudly carry that title. I'm going to, and I vote for the Critics' Choice Awards, one of the biggest award shows in the country. So, take it up with them.
I think maybe he's also upset about the way that people who are creatives do things on the internet, where you do post your cash apps and whatever, because we don't have patrons anymore necessarily.
Yeah, and outlets that actually pay are few and far between. I get paid per clicks on Vocal. I get paid per clicks. That's not a lot, but I do get that. I do get donations from people. And I mean, is this guy angry at Patreon too? Is he like, should we not be using Patreon? Like, does that remove your professional status if you're a comedian or a filmmaker on Patreon? You're not real because you're asking for donations.
I think one of the things that it might be is that he doesn't have any creativity. So he doesn't understand, he has probably a regular shitty job that he goes to, and then his online presence is just to try to bring other people down because he doesn't have anything like, he doesn't have any creative outlets other than bringing people down. That's why, Twitter is all trolls now. There's like almost no regular discourse because people feel so badly about themselves that they have to go on and try to make people feel badly about themselves as well.
And by the way, it didn't work. Like, if the effort was to hurt me or to tell me to get off the internet, we're here doing this show right now, and my 2,000+ word review of Dress to Kill just went live today. So you didn't stop anything. You've accomplished nothing.
Let me proofread it?
Other than being angry and at something that is completely out of your control. You spent time being angry, but you've done absolutely nothing in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
So good for you, I guess.
I've had messages, and the thing is on my website, if you send me a message, there's no way to hide your email, or at least there hasn't been. And there was somebody who did not like me, and it was a personal thing, and they didn't realize that their email automatically shows up, and they made up some name that they signed, and told me how much my artwork sucked, how I was probably going to die penniless if I tried to go into art. Just some really nasty shit. And then it was sent from it got attached to their email, so I knew exactly who it was. So I knew this person in real life, so I went up to him. I'm like, "Oh, by the way, I got your message on my website." And they just like looked like they were going to die. I was like, "Thanks for the career advice."
Oh, wow. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's the way social media should be. Is like, you should not be able to have a username. You should have, like me, my name is in my username all over the place. Like, I am not impossible to find. If you want to send me something, it's very easy to find me because I don't hide behind a username.
Yeah.
And I think that should be the way it is. You should have to put your identity on the things you're saying, because if you're going to criticize people and be angry at people, you should have to answer for that. Like, if you're being shitty to people, then everybody should know who it is that's being shitty. Oh, but then I could lose my job. Well, exactly.
Don't be shitty then.
Then maybe consider what you're saying to people.
Exactly.
Maybe I reviewed somebody's movie and they just were like really mad about the review. Dude, you made a movie. What does my opinion matter? Clearly, you don't respect my opinion, so why would that make you angry? Why are you angry at somebody whose opinion you don't respect? Doesn't make any sense.
Well, nobody makes a lot of sense anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we watch movies, because movies tend to make sense unless they're twisters.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Twisters, Jeff. Twisters, starring Glenn Powell, the flavor of the month, the hottest new movie star, and I've got no problem with him. I think he's good. I think he's a good-looking dude, and I do enjoy his work for the most part. I didn't enjoy this at all, not even a little bit. I find this movie to be just as cringy as the conversation we had last week about that line in the movie that's just such a clangor of a line that you don't
That was
face
in
your fears.
that was in the trailer. I watched for it in the movie. I didn't see it in the movie.
Oh yeah, no, it's in the bull riding sequence. They go to a what do you call it? Where the place where they ride bulls anyway. And he's telling,
rodeo.
Yeah, rodeo, and he's telling the story about.
Oh, that's when I went to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's where the line was, where he says it. You don't face your fears, you ride them. And I find that the entire movie comes down to that fucking line because it's just all cringe like that. Like one of the first things is that they introduced the Glenn Powell character, and he's so obnoxious. His entire team is just made up of the most obnoxious human beings who are just disrespectful and rude. Like it's supposed to be cool that they cut him off on the way to the tornado and nearly drove him off the road. Like we're supposed to root for you for that. You nearly killed us. You nearly killed these two people. Like, why is that cool? That he nearly kills himself and this journalist that's along with him and a friend of his by driving into the tornado so he can set off fireworks into it. Like, tornadoes are fun, never mind all the complete devastation and people who lost their homes. It's funny because I put fireworks in it. Fuck you, movie. Fuck you. Fuck this movie. Then, of course, inevitably, he's got to become the hero. We've got the character played by Daisy Edgar-Jones, who is the serious scientific type. And, of course, they do that bullshit where, like, he's a little bit country and she's a little bit rock and roll or whatever. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Oh, like they're so different, all country. Oh, hey, city girl. Hey, city girl. Like, first of all, she's not a city girl, but she doesn't tell him that. But nevertheless, they've got to do that for whatever fucking reason. It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't create any chemistry between them. It just creates it makes her angry and makes her look even weirder when she comes around to him. I just don't get what anyone was going for in this.
I know what they were going for. They were going for a direct sequel to Twister, and she was supposed to be Helen Hunt's daughter. Why they didn't have Helen Hunt in here, I don't know if she just didn't want to do it and they didn't want to back the money truck up or what, but it's so obvious when he says, "What's your name?" And she said, "Kate." And he says, "Kate what?" And she just stops for a second, doesn't say what her last name is. So it's supposed to be whatever their last name, whatever Bill Paxton's last name was in the last movie.
Right.
Just so many little things about, we got invited for barbecue after. And that Maura Tierney was supposed to be Helen Hunt. Yeah.
I kind of got that feeling,
that's what they were going for. That's what the whole movie was gonna go to that, and it didn't. So there was no point.
It didn't because Helen Hunt probably read this script and said, "Fuck you."
Yeah, you're not wrong.
As much as I don't love Twister, I don't think Twister is some all-time untouchable classic or anything, but I do believe that movie, as much as it thrives on adventure, as much as it is an action movie and it's using tornadoes for action, I do think that movie had respect for tornadoes and the damage that tornadoes do. Mm-hmm. I do think that because everybody in the movie is a scientist in that film. There's no cowboy who comes riding in like the cool guy, and like Glenn Powell's character, who's out for fame at the expense of people who are actually fucking dying in tornadoes. Like, they all had respect for tornadoes, and their goal was to create something that could map a tornado so that they could save lives. And Daisy Edgar-Jones's character is trying to carry on that tradition, which would make sense. If she was Helen Hunt's daughter and carrying on that tradition, that would make sense. But they have that whole like cowboy YouTube guy, fame chasing guy. And it ruins the entire movie. It ruins any notion of being respectful of the fact that tornadoes do happen. They're becoming more severe because of climate change. I'll get to that. Tornadoes and storms in general are becoming more dangerous because of climate change, man-made climate change. Sorry. I know you don't like to hear it, dumb people, but you're dumb. Scientists have been telling you this for years. Storms are getting worse because of man-made climate change. Fact. Scientific fact. The storms are getting worse, and they're doing more. They're causing more devastation. So having this guy be completely disrespectful of that, his stupid little fireworks in his YouTube channel, treating it like it's a ride. It's just tonally off. It's just so disrespectful and ugly and mean. And then for him to have to be the hero later, it just doesn't work. The turn never works for me. As much as Glen Powell is doing good work to try and win us over, and the things that they're doing with him and Daisy Edgar-Jones, they do have some chemistry, and he does seem to care about her, that tries to get this thing turned around. By that point, they've been so obnoxious and so disrespectful that I was just irritated and wanted to go home.
Yeah, okay. When the movie started, I was fully giving it the benefit of the doubt. I saw, Kiernan Shipka's in this. That's awesome. Anthony Ramos is in this. Awesome. And then I'm like, okay, well, they're not in this anymore. So I was like, okay, what now? Well, I'm going to say this. Glen Powell does absolutely nothing for me at all. He never has since I think I first saw him in Scream Queens. Had no affinity for him at all. Daisy Edgar-Jones is okay. She just, like, Where the Crawdad Sings she was just so nothing in it for me that I don't really ever want to see anything she's in. She doesn't excite me. Anthony Ramos, Brandon Perea, like I said, Kiernan Shipka. David Cornsweet. It was Katie O'Brien. All these people that are in it are so much better than the leads, just as actors, that I was really kind of rooting for the movie. But it was a retread of the original Twister. But with the role reversal, I'm with the bad guys, but I don't know I'm with the bad guys, even though it's so obvious from the first line that Anthony Ramos has when he comes back, or even from the beginning when he says, "I'm in it for the money." I'm like, oh. So then when he comes back and he says, "I've got big donors," I'm just like, oh, okay. He's working for somebody who's not the good guy.
The lamest bad guy ever, a land developer who is buying up towns that have been decimated by tornadoes. This is just the shittiest fucking villain. He has no presence in the movie, other than to just be, a clownish, like, cartoon of a cowboy.
And I feel like the movie is setting it up so that you're not supposed to realize until it's revealed to her.
It was very obvious right away.
That's what I'm saying. Because you're not supposed to realize it until Kate realizes it, but then you realize Kate's a fucking moron because I got it within the first 5 minutes of seeing him on there.
Yeah.
And David Cornsweet's his nephew and is, acting like he's not, and they're just so obvious about it that I just don't understand why people didn't get that.
And then there's this kind of love triangle sort of kind of that the movie can't commit to, but also introduces anyway, where, like, Anthony Ramos has to be kind of heartbroken that she would choose the Glen Powell over him, and it's like there was no chemistry between them. They had a brother-sister chemistry from the beginning. Why just find a way to dispose of that? You don't need it. Him, seemingly having to, like, give her up and understand that she doesn't love him the way she loves Glen Powell. Like, that was totally not needed in this movie. It was just weird and awkward, and it just made Anthony Ramos look bad. It just was not necessary for this fucking movie.
Yeah, completely agree.
I know people are gonna say I hated this before I saw it, and I hated the trailer before I saw it, to be clear. I tried. I went into this, like I said, I like Glenn Powell. I wanted this to be good, but the signs were there that this was not a movie that was going to be respectful of the fact that tornadoes are destructive and actually kill people and take away homes, leave people without anything. Like, that's not a fun thrill ride. and the idea that they announced ahead of time that we're not going to mention climate change in this movie is so cowardly that I lost all respect for the director when he said it. It's like, you're just pandering now. You're just pandering to try and make sure that you've got a four-quarter blockbuster. Like that, this just reveals the soullessness of this, because to put out a movie that is literally about how our climate is hurting people, and to pretend that climate change has no role to play in that is just cowardly. It's openly, blatantly disrespectful. It's disgusting. And it's a grift. Honestly, it's just a way. It's a pandering grift to say that, well, both sides make good points. No, they don't. Scientists are not on both sides of this. This is not an argument. The scientists are on one side saying climate change has happened, is happening and getting worse. And a bunch of fucking millionaires who don't want to give up their fucking profits are on the other side going, well, but you don't want to listen to the scientists because, we're going to have to raise prices if you do.
Yeah, let's not alienate the stupid people who are going to come to this. Let's just pretend it's not happening. That seems to be the way of the world, though.
True that. It just makes me hate this movie that much more. It's just so blatantly not not a real movie about either tornadoes or really about anything. It's just,
well, and see, I did not hate it. I just didn't. I forgot about it completely, though. Once I left the theater, and I'll say this: the original Twister, I watch, I don't know, maybe once a year when there's bad weather, just to have it on in the background.
Yeah,
and it's one of those things that I'm not one of those people who thinks it is one of the greatest movies ever. But it's one of those ones that I like to watch the destruction and the cow, stuff like that. It's fun, but it's not. I don't hold it. It's never going to be. It's probably not even in my top 100 movies of all time.
But I think it has respect for its subject matter. I think all the characters demonstrate a care for the subject matter, and that does matter, because I don't think the characters in this movie, this sequel, care. I don't think they have that. I don't think they have that understanding, and it wasn't even part of his character journey. Like, Glenn Powell didn't learn to respect tornadoes. He just suddenly stopped being the character he was in the first half of the movie. He was one person, and now he's a completely different person. He was a fame whore, and now he's not. That's the character journey.
Yeah, he did not leave enough of an impression on me to matter if he did have a journey. If he had an arc, I wouldn't have cared, because he's just so bland. And I trust me, I got into it today on the internet with somebody who thinks that he is just the be all and end all. And how can you not like him? He was in an astronaut outfit and Hidden Figures, and he was, oh my God. And I'm just going, dude, he's like, he looks like he was built in a lab. He wasn't particularly good in anything I've seen him in, and I saw Hidden Figures and I liked it, but I wasn't concentrating on him at all.
I liked the little bit of him I saw in Top Gun Maverick, and I did like. I have seen that romantic comedy that he did with Sydney Sweeney, and I thought that was at the very least mildly charming, and it turned completely inoffensive. So I do like the fact that there is a new sort of movie star in the world. We could use some movie stars.
I would have liked it better if David Cornsweet had played that part.
His
He's
part, that
so
poor
much
guy,
hotter.
that poor guy, that was such a shitty role.
Yeah.
He got to do
Well, I mean,
nothing and had to be the complete asshole.
After him in Pearl, and which I have been rewatching because I worked on a Pearl sticker, he's so magnetic, and here he was given nothing to do.
Nothing at all. Make him the villain. Let him have the villain role.
Yeah. Yeah, what if he was actually the guy behind the guy buying up all the property? What if he was the one who was doing it all? And at the end, at the end of the movie, he was just he decided he was going to sabotage her experiment or something, just something,
or make him like the Carrie Elwes character in Twisters was, like, who gets his, comeuppance by being too arrogant in the moment. Like, that's an arc that leaves out that the unnecessary fake cowboy guy that they got, who looks like a cartoon villain. It looks like Mr. Dimsdale minus the giant hat. Like, it's such a lame villain.
Slim Pickens in Dr. Strangelove, that kind of.
He's got the bolo tie, the stupid hat, the suit, got cowboy boots. Fuck that character. Fuck.
I was glad to see Katie O'Brien in it, though.
Yeah,
I like her, especially from Love Lies Bleeding and The Mandalorian and all that. So
there's good people here. They're not given good things to do.
Yeah. I was, like I said, when I saw Kiernan Shipka, I was like, oh my God, that's 2 weeks in a row. Amazing. And then she's gone in 5 minutes.
Tunde Adebimpe is in this movie, and I love him. He was in Rachel's Getting Married. He played the husband in that movie and was wonderful. And of course, he's the lead singer of TV on the Radio, which is an amazingly underrated band. And so I was very happy to see him. And that he's just everybody. All of those characters are basically the same. Like, they're all just background characters who just react to Glenn Powell by cheering everything that he says and does.
Yeah.
And like, they're all better than that. They're all better than that. Yeah, I hated Twisters. There you go. Tell me why I'm the worst online film critic, because I hate Twisters.
You're just supposed to say it stank.
He was very upset that I used the word stink. Oh. It's a reference to several different people. One of which is the critic, Jay Sherman. It stinks. Like, was Jay Sherman not a critic? His show is literally called The Critic.
He was the critic.
Oddity is a new horror film starring Gwilym Lee, Carolyn Bracken, and Taj Murphy, and directed by Damian Mc Carthy. And it tells the story of twin sisters who, one of whom is blind, one of whom is married and has moved into this new home in the English countryside, this very remote area of the English countryside, this very old house that needs a lot of work. And as she's moving in, her sister has given her, instruction to kind of, look for ghosts. Here's some ways to look for ghosts. So there's already kind of a creepy vibe that is kind of coming from this house. But as she's there by herself, her husband is a doctor who's working nights at a mental hospital not too far away. She's there alone by herself, and there's a knock at the door. And the man who comes to the door said that when she went out to her car before to retrieve something, someone snuck into the house behind her, and that she's not in there alone. And he's urging her to let him in to protect her and go find this person who came in the house. And she's got a choice to make. Does she let this very odd, very sweaty, kind of gross looking dude into her house to go search for the person that he claims came in when she didn't see it, or does she not? And that choice will come to the end of her life. We will find that later on. We move to a year later, and her sister, also they're both played by Carolyn Bracken, is visited by the husband, played by Gwilym Lee, who wants, tells her about where he is in life. It's a year later. He learns about her, her shop where she sells these very curious items that have a supernatural background. We also get the intimation that she has some kind of ability to use items to learn about the people who held those items, and especially about the ways they may have died with those items. Very cool, very interesting, really great scenes, and Carolyn Bracken is really incredible in both roles. She creates, in fact, I couldn't even tell that was two different, I couldn't tell, I thought it was two different actors. That's how great she is in creating these two, not just because one is blind and blonde and the other is a brunette, but just because the performances are so distinct and so interesting that it just kind of occurred to me later, like, oh, that's the same actress.
Yeah, same.
He lets slip that, it's a year later and he's already kind of moved on, and he's got a new girlfriend, and this of course kind of sets off a little something for her character, to want to come to the house and see it, and also to maybe meet this girlfriend. And I think secretly she wants to get something of the husband so she can hold it in her hand and determine if he had actually been cheating on her sister while she was still alive. And perhaps there's even more to that. But the thing that most people are going to take away from this is that she brings this gift, and this gift it's one of the most incredible horror visuals I've seen in a long time. It's really cool. It takes you back to the early 1900s. One of the first horror film villains of all time is the Golem from 1912. And this thing is basically that. But today, with today's technology and the ability to make it like something that is so incredibly tangible and terrifying, I loved this thing. But really, I just loved everything about this movie. Carolyn Bracken's character is blind, but they don't make a big thing of it. It's not something that the movie uses either to garner sympathy for her, because you don't necessarily sympathize with her. She's kind of weird, kind of off-putting, which again is actually perfect for the performance. And she is essentially the hero of the movie, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But she is not a scream queen. She is not somebody you're rooting for necessarily. She's kind of the default person that you're going for because she's the least shitty human being on screen. And she is mostly innocent, aside from the fact that I think she's going to kill these people.
Well, maybe.
I really liked this a lot. I thought the tension and suspense was great. I loved the filmmaking. I thought it was really stylish. And again, that monster was so cool.
Yeah, it was. This was the scariest movie I've seen in a while, and really? I mean that. Oh, wow. Yeah, it had a lot. The jump scares in it were super effective. That white mask.
Oh fuck yeah, that mask was great.
On the killer.
That was phenomenal.
Oh, it was hideous. And then the jump scare when she's in the tent about made me shit my pants. I jumped out of my seat. Mm-hmm. I knew I knew something was coming, but I was just like, holy shit. It was the sense of dread in the first half hour of the movie was just palpable to me. That's the one thing that scares me, and I think it's ever since I got broken into when I lived in New York City, is that somebody else is there and you don't know it. That's why the original Strangers was so effective, because you didn't know it. Everybody knew it, but she didn't know it.
Yeah.
And this, the old creaking house, and is somebody in the house with you, or is it just the house?
Yeah, that type of thing will get me every time. I grew up in a series of old houses that were always making some kind of noise. The house I mostly grew up in was an old livery stable where they had like horses and shit in it before they turned it into a fucking house, and it was just creaky and weird and had odd angles, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really unsettled by it. The the wooden figure with that
Oh,
scream
fuck.
face was terrifying.
Hmm.
Um, the guy who played the orderly was physically terrifying. Um, just all the
Really great
little
creep.
unsettling
What a
bits.
great creep he was.
Yeah, yeah. The sunken cheeks and
Hmm.
Governor Tarkin looking Peter Cushing kind of face, and
True
the
is,
guy
yeah.
who they thought was the killer
Hmm.
with his glass that was just kind of painted on. Oh,
That was a great piece.
so
And
creepy.
it's interesting. They gave us that scene, the choice that she's got to make, between letting him in and not letting him in. They give us that in the trailer, but it's still so effective in the movie.
And I did not watch the trailer.
Ah, I did, and yeah, that scene is basically the entirety of that is the entirety of the trailer. But I still found it incredibly effective in the movie. They extended out obviously in the movie, and you learn a little bit more about how he's the reason why he wants to get in there is because somebody is in there with her, or at least he's claiming that. And that is such a great piece of suspense, because is he there to kill her, or is he actually genuinely wanting to protect this person? And it's tragic to find out that maybe he was there to be the good person. Like it's terrific stuff.
Yeah, it really, really was. It was weird and creepy, and that sense of dread
Mm-hmm.
is what I love in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And that this had it in spades. It was refreshing to see a movie that wasn't, just a slasher movie, wasn't a ghost story or a devil story.
Mm-hmm. There are
Um,
supernatural things. Obviously, the monster itself is a supernatural entity, but the underlining thing, the underlying monstrosity, is coming from people and the things that people do.
yeah, yeah.
And that ending, oh my god, that was so good. We got to talk about the ending. So, spoiler alert for Oddity. If you've not seen it yet, go see this fucking movie. It's so good. But we got to talk about the ending, because that is such a great setup. But it all hinges on Gwilym Lee's performance, because he has to portray that character. First of all, he has to be sympathetic. You have to kind of feel for him early on. Then he's got to kind of become detached from him because he's moved on so quickly, and then he becomes suspicious, and then he makes the full heel turn in the third act, and you're like, this guy fucking sucks. So but his arrogance is established so well in that early scene in the shop that at the end there's no way he's not going to hit that bell.
Yeah. And you see him the whole time, just he's like, oh, I don't believe this. And then he's like, maybe I believe it a little bit. No, no, I have to do this. He cannot resist the temptation because he thinks he's going to get away with everything because he's gotten away with everything so far.
Mm-hmm.
That he doesn't think there will be any repercussions whatsoever. And that's the kind of character I like,
Mm-hmm.
because they always have a bad end.
It was so great. What a great piece of tension. What a great piece of suspense. And the final image, that grabber of a reveal is so good. The editing is spectacular. The blocking of the scene is perfect. It's so good. I'm just glowing about this movie.
And you know what I liked about it too is it felt like one of those old EC Comics Creep Show,
Mm.
Tales from the Crypt. It felt like one of those,
Mm-hmm.
but scarier.
Yeah.
So
And
I really enjoyed that, and
it's such a
I
unique
was
energy. The whole movie is, because of, again, you kill your more traditional, character who would be a protagonist. You kill them, you even make them kind of a mini monster in the movie, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kill them Janet Leigh style, and then you have suddenly you have this new protagonist who is not a traditional movie protagonist in any way. She's more of a traditional horror movie villain.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, it's not even reinventing the wheel. He's not changing horror. He's not reinventing the genre. He's just taking things you're familiar with and twisting them. And that's how you elevate a genre movie, is you take things people are familiar with and you just give them a little twist.
Yes, exactly. And the fact that she played both characters as completely different people so well that I was the same, it was the same for me. I was like, is she a different actor or?
Yeah.
And it took me a little bit to see, when the one girl is watching the videotape on the camera, that's when I'm like, oh, it is the same person.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a shout out too. There's another actor in the movie who plays the girlfriend. And I apologize for not having her name right at the front, but good on her for playing that character as such a bitch. Like she,
Mm-hmm.
because there's the tendency to try and make that character the more, maybe the relatable, or maybe try to create a tragic character who is kind of sympathetic. No, she's a full on bitch. She leans right into being horrible.
And she leaves. She does not stick around to get killed. She does not stick around to, discover anything, whatever.
Yeah. No,
she's leaves.
Not. She's a little curious. She does one really super bad thing that she should not do. And then she's like, no, fuck this shit, I'm out.
She does what normal people would do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Again, another thing where he takes a genre familiarity and he twists it. That's great stuff.
Yeah, highly, highly recommend it. And it was distributed by Shudder, so I'm sure it'll be on Shudder soon.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have Shudder, check it out.
Yeah, what a great year for horror this is. Like, this is the best year ever. It's been it's nonstop awesome this year. We're just going from banger after banger after banger of horror movies. Just they're all great.
Exactly. Way I like it.
We've never seen anything quite like this.
No, this is one of those really, really unique movies. Kind of, I don't want to put it on the same level as Midsommar or Hereditary, but it's in that vein of completely different and something you never really have seen. At least I haven't, and I've seen a lot of horror movies, so
love it a lot. All right,
agreed.
Our classic this week, and I don't know if you picked this because of the kind of a similarity in that you got one protagonist who then becomes a new, then we have to introduce a new protagonist after that protagonist is killed, but that's kind of a theme in both films. So Dress to Kill is our classic this week, and I do want to just get right to one thing, and then not to dismiss this or not to get this I'm not trying to just get this out of the way. There's a lot of talk about Dress to Kill, about trans identity, and about this being a trans character, supposedly. And I wrote a lot about this because I am a trans ally. I have trans people in my family, an extended family, and I am incredibly sympathetic to anyone who looks at this and goes, this is a movie that is bad for trans people, or portrays trans people in a way that is wrong, or portrays them as just mentally ill killers. And I feel for you when thinking that way. It's your lived experience of being trans, whoever you are, is far more informed than anything I'm going to say about it. That being established, and where my sympathy lies, I do believe that this movie is not about a trans character. I believe this is about a mentally ill character. And I do believe that Brian De Palma, the writer-director, does make the mistake of of trying to make this about a character who wants to transition to become a woman, when the reality of this is not that. The reality of this is a character who suffers from multiple personality disorders, among several other mental handicaps, that causes him to be a killer. And trans identity might be part of this character's journey. Dr. Elliot, Michael Caine's character, that might be part of his journey, but he's well into middle age. This is not something he's dealt with and is not going to be something that he deals with for some time. That is the least of his concerns, is any kind of identity issue, becoming transitioning to become a woman. That is not what this is about. He needs to deal with a very dangerous mental illness first before he can ever talk about transitioning. So the mistake that I think De Palma makes is having anybody say that this is a woman trapped in a man's body. This is a mentally ill man whose expression of his mental illness happens to take on the presentation of a woman. And that's really and that's me threading a needle here, because I do think this is a really good movie. I just do think the movie, yes, does have elements that are transphobic, but I do believe it is also a movie that doesn't understand trans identity the way we understand it today.
Yeah. I don't see this as particularly transphobic, in that this is really De Palma's Psycho. And in Psycho, Norman is, he's got a multiple personality disorder, but he also is kind of a transvestite, because he had a sexual relationship with his mother, apparently. And I think that Bobby in this movie, the female manifestation of Michael Caine's character, I think is more of a Norman Bates kind of doppelganger, in that, or analog, I guess I should say, in that they're confused about their identity and they take on this female personality and think that that's what they are. And I've had this discussion with a couple of my trans friends about this movie and The Sounds of the Lambs. How when that movie came out, it was deemed very transphobic, even though Hannibal Lecter says that, he basically makes the same argument you just made about Buffalo Bill, that he's not a real transsexual, but he's been led to believe he is. And that's kind of the way I feel about Michael Caine's character here, is that he's kind of had that psychotic break where he desires these women so much that he thinks he wants to be one. And I don't think that comes out as clearly as it back in the day when it was made as it does now. Mm-hmm. Where most people have a little more experience with trans people, and they can see that this isn't not really a trans character.
It's certainly not a trans character, and I think the problem, and I think where trans people have a right to say something, or not right, but like a point to make about this movie, is that there are elements, especially in the character who is Bobby's doctor, Dr. Elliot's own doctor, does seem to conflate trans identity with mental illness. And those are not the same things. Trans identity, being trans, is not a mental illness. If you're trans, there is nothing wrong with you. You're fine. You yes. Become who you are, and be who you are, and love who you are. It is not a mental illness. And I do think that there are a couple of scenes where that character appears to conflate mental illness and being trans. And I think that is where the reputation is moving, being transphobic, comes from. And I think there is a point to be made there.
This being attracted to men is a mental illness because men are terrible. Being trans is not. Let's talk about the museum scene.
That is an incredible scene. But we should introduce first, of course, Angie Dickinson's character, Kate, who is a housewife who is completely dissatisfied with her sex life. She talks about it with her doctor, Dr. Elliot, and everything about her. From the opening scene where she's her dream is interrupted by an assault, and that assault turns out to be her really having sex, really, really bad sex with her husband. Her just constantly being kept from getting to sexual satisfaction builds toward that library scene, which is essentially De Palma using the tools of film to portray foreplay without actually showing foreplay until he actually does show foreplay.
Yeah, so the fact that she's sitting in a museum and she's looking at the art, but she's really looking at the people around her more and observing them, and then kind of doesn't see that this guy is approaching her until he sits down. And then she gets very self-conscious and decides that she's going to just flirt, thinking it won't lead to anything. And then she gets really invested in it and is chasing him around until he, gets her into his trap, so to speak. It's so interesting. And it's 9 minutes without any dialogue.
It's actually 20 minutes. If you count the sex, her going back to the apartment from the time she sits down until the time she is killed is 20 solid minutes where barely anything is said.
Yeah.
It's incredible. The shifting emotions, especially, and Angie Dickinson does not get enough credit for her performance in this. The modulating of emotions, the expression of dissatisfaction, that very charming scene with her and Keith Gordon as her son Peter, which De Palma blocks brilliantly as he moves them around that room, placing her in his perspective and him in her perspective, by shifting where they are in the room. It's such a great piece of filmmaking, but it's also a way for us to see her in a more sympathetic light. Because if you don't have a scene between her and Peter early on, that specific scene, then she's just this angry, bitter housewife who's having this like really angry conversation with her therapist, and then she's dead. And so that scene is so perfectly placed. It is such a clever piece of filmmaking by De Palma to place that where he does. But then that conversation between her and Dr. Elliot is so cutting and so smart. And she's right. She's right. Her husband is shitty, but at the same time, she's been in her life for as long as she's been alive. She's been told that women don't talk about sex. They're not allowed to seek sex. Women aren't supposed to need sexual release in her mind, because that's the way she's been brought up. And him pushing her to say, tell your husband he's bad at sex. She's like, I'm not going to do that. There are aspects of my life that I do enjoy.
Well, and that the only fulfilling relationship she has in her life is with her son.
Yeah.
That's literally the only relationship that means anything to her.
And again, another clever piece that doesn't get enough talk is how Mike is not a character in the movie. Her husband, he's not a character in this movie. He is entirely absent. He barely gets a few words in. And the point of that is that she feels lonely, and making sure that character makes no impression on the audience only serves to underline just how alone she feels. Then you get to that museum scene and her shifting emotions that are just playing across her face, from kind of excitement to embarrassment to shame to excitement again, and then being embarrassed when he catches her, chasing after him, and then her shame trying to get away from him as he chases her, and then the glove and the whole thing, getting pulled into the cab. What a clever way to keep that scene going. And the way he uses the glove as a sort of visual piece to keep the mystery going is so great. the filmic technique, the way that the soundtrack goes from this, I mean, it's almost like a shampoo commercial soundtrack early on, and then Pino Donaggio, he just sort of builds the tension behind the scene until the soundtrack becomes very suspenseful and Hitchcockian. Like it's underlining, it's getting faster and scarier. So good.
Well,
all the elements are there.
What lends this movie to being his De Palma's Psycho is also the music, because that dun 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 is reminiscent of the strings in the shower scene in Psycho. And I mean, when we talked about Tourist Trap, I kind of gushed about Pino Donaggio because, quite honestly, it's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. It's so off the wall. Everybody should listen to it. I listen to it when I write sometimes. The little that he always puts in his soundtracks. In this one, it almost sounds like, the Greek chorus behind her, kind of judging her. As taking kind of the side of, the judgmental audience who would judge her for picking up a guy in a museum and having sex in a cab and, not being able to tell her husband that he sucks in the sack. That's one of the things that he does so well, is has that that kind of observant chorus. And when she is finally in the bedroom and she looks in the drawer and sees that, he's had a venereal disease, and she stands up and she's the fright on her face. And then the soundtrack goes up with that, with her, and here come the consequences of my actions that I didn't think I was going to have. And
it's very horror movie. It's very horror movie. It's very biblical, punishment. You're immediately like, you've sinned, now you're dead.
Well, and that's the thing, is you think that could be one of the worst things that happens to her, and then she goes to the elevator and gets murdered. It's very Janet Leigh in Psycho. It's very, and the little girl who stares at her in the elevator and is judging her. She's one of us. She's the one she sees what Kate has done, and she is very upset about it, but she can't say it. She doesn't know what she's upset about. So
yeah, I gotta say, like, I don't think when everybody talks about this movie, they talk about the murder, and they talk about the museum scene. They don't talk enough about how great Angie Dickinson is, because she doesn't have a reputation as being a great actress. She's got a reputation for, like she was thought to be the person who was like breaking up Elvis and Priscilla, because she was in movies with Elvis, and she was considered a sex pot and not taken seriously. And I think De Palma specifically chose her based off of that reputation to put her in this movie and put her in a situation where you take this very sexy woman and don't allow her to actually achieve any kind of sex, which is a great, it's just a little great thing to put in the back of the audience's head, to a little seed. And then of course we're building to the courage that Hays Code style punishment where, well, someone has committed a sin, so therefore they must be punished. And you think for a moment the punishment is going to be she's got a venereal disease.
Yeah.
But of course,
well, she's just finally had sex that matters.
Satisfying sex. She's finally had an orgasm that's been denied to her from the from the shower scene to sex with her husband to Dr. Elliot seemingly rejecting her. She's been denied, and now she finally gets to have a sexual climax, and boom, consequences immediately. And then dead.
Yeah.
All right, so we're still talking about Dressed to Kill. We haven't even gotten to Nancy Allen and Keith Gordon, really. We talked a little bit about Keith Gordon's character, of course, Peter, who is Kate's son, and he becomes the junior detective of the movie. And again, De Palma is very smart. He uses that opening scene with Peter to establish that he's very clever. He builds devices. He's smart beyond his years. So when he creates a listening device that he uses to listen in on the interview between the detective and Dr. Elliot to get some leads on who killed his mother, it's not a stretch. It's not something that the movie is just then introduced. It's introduced earlier in the film. And it seems in character for Peter to do that. And of course he does get some very good information out of that. And then they team him up with Nancy Allen's character, who is a sex worker. Will come to learn she actually sees the killer, and she sees the aftermath of the death of Angie Dickinson's character, and becomes the target of Bobby, the killer. And teaming her and Keith Gordon is another ingenious move, because whatever your opinion of her, she becomes more sympathetic being with him because he's already so sympathetic.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of feeling when he's with his mom. They just they're just having a regular conversation. It's the conversation that you have that's completely normal and mundane, that you never know is going to be your last conversation with someone.
Yeah.
And the kind of guilt that shows on his face when he's sitting there listening to the cop and the doctor talk about his mother, kind of coldly, is, I've got to do something about this, because, if I had just gone to lunch with her, this would have never happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and pairing him up, who is fairly naive, but has a big wake up call, with Nancy Allen, who is street smart and, is picking her Johns the right way, so that they're helping her with investment advice, so she can live in this really nice apartment and eat lunch at Windows on the World.
Yeah.
She's been around and has seen a lot and knows a lot, and he doesn't know anything. And this is kind of his introduction to reality. So
a smart pairing. It really works, and they've got great chemistry too, almost too good considering how young he is. Their chemistry is almost too good. It doesn't go that way, and smartly so, but it's more of a kind of she becomes kind of a surrogate mom essentially now that his actual mother is gone, and I liked their dynamic a lot. And then the employment of Dennis Franz as the detective. He's a perfect kind of character for this. He's stereotypically New York. He gets the dynamic between him and Michael Caine is so good, because Michael Caine is definitely looking down his nose at him and is kind of being insulting and standoffish. And when Franz throws back at him that whole diagnosis about his patients, the feathery language that Caine uses to describe mental illness, and he throws it right back at him directly using those same words, just to let him know, I know what you're talking about. I'm simplifying it by saying weirdos, but I know what the fuck you're talking about. That was great. That was great stuff.
Yeah, the one thing that bothered me was Dennis Franz. Every time he talked to Nancy Allen, but you're a whore. You're a whore. And I'm like, oh my God, would you stop calling her a whore?
Yeah.
But he was just as smarmy in this role as he's ever been. Mm-hmm. And it really, I guess, smarmy as a fox, because he does have ulterior motives for treating her this way.
Yeah.
So that she doesn't know that he's using her, which is great.
And the work smarter, not harder ethic that he's got going on, where he's like, he has somebody else doing all the work. He's doing none of the work himself. It's so good.
Sitting back eating donuts.
But he cracked the case. He knew what he was doing. That was so good. That was such great stuff. I was really impressed by all of that. I'm impressed by this whole movie. It's so well thought out and constructed, and it's also taking like elements of B movies and elevating them, like we were talking about with Oddity, where you take things that are familiar and you just twist them a little bit. You he adds the flavor of being just an exceptional technical director, and elevates things that are, the movie is still sleazy. It's still super horny, like any other, pulp B movie, but it's elevated by the fact that it's being made by a guy who is a master of the form.
Yeah, Brian De Palma, he's been accused of being more style than substance.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a movie like this, which is style and substance, just never gets enough credit.
Mm-hmm. People
I think that
people see the sleaze right away, and they don't see the formalism.
right. And I think that with something like this, where it's clearly a Hitchcock homage.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your blonde, you've got well, I guess your blondes, you've got your kind of on the case person. I think that he doesn't get enough credit for doing some real classics. Like, people don't even. I know that there are a lot of people, yes, that give this movie its due, but I don't think that they think of it necessarily as a classic, just as an exercise in style.
Mm. Watching this, and I've seen this before, and I kind of only half watched it, I guess, in previous years, because it never really hit me as hard as it did this time. This was kind of revelatory for me watching it this time and seeing how brilliant it is. But it made me want to watch Sisters. It made me want to watch The Fury. These movies that I've kind of heard a little bit about, but not taken the time to watch, or not as maybe I've seen them in passing, but not like sat down to actually analyze them. Like, I analyzed the hell out of this movie. I was watching a scene, stopping, writing about it, watching a scene. Like, I was so in this movie that it made me like, I want to do this more.
Yeah. Now, did you notice the little kind of fleeting glimpses of Bobby throughout the movie?
Yeah, like
Just
right outside the museum, there's this flash of Bobby that is obviously, like most people see, the picking up of the glove and as an indication that she's being watched, but there's actually a full face shot of Bobby as the camera passes, going from Angie Dickinson to the cab. You see a full face picture of Bobby.
Yeah. And and she's there throughout. And sometimes it's Bobby, and sometimes it's the cop who is following Keith Gordon.
Yeah. Great.
Which
Another
is
great piece
kind
of
of brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think he does kind of cheat by having the same actress play Bobby, where it's not always Michael Caine until the end. But that's just a little quibble that I have.
Excellent movie.
So I'm a thumbs up. I want everybody to go see it.
If you know, and by the way, 44 years ago this week is when this movie was released.
Really?
Yeah. Comes out this Friday. It will be exactly 44 years to the day of the release of Dressed to Kill.
Nice. I guess I'm glad I picked it.
All right. Let's talk about a little flick chart. What do you say? Here's next week. We'll be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. We'll be talking about Logan and the original Deadpool. I'm definitely going to watch Deadpool 2 again because I have not seen that one in a little while. So, yeah, we'll talk a little.
I did watch it the other day.
We'll talk a little X-Men and a little of Deadpool and a whole lot of Deadpool and Wolverine next week. But for now, let's get into it. Terrence Malick's The New World or Running Scared, starring Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal.
I don't think I saw The New World.
I'll make that decision for us. And the New World is an exceptional fucking movie. More people need to see it. All right. Next up, Live and Let Die or I've never heard of that. Public Enemies starring Johnny Depp.
Oh, I don't like James Bond, and I didn't see that.
Really? Yeah. Public Enemies is pretty good. Christian
Was
Bale,
it?
Johnny Depp, John Dillinger story, directed by Michael Mann.
Well, we can pick it.
There's that picked. That is a winner. All right. Come on, Flick Chart. Get to business here. Come on. It's taking a little bit of time to pick the next two movies to compare. So I don't know. I'm not really having any internet issues. This is definitely Flick Chart's problem.
Usually is.
We're the only website we're the only podcast that really loves Flick Chart. Of course, they've shown us no love. What the hell? Flick Chart, come on.
Right? Come on, Flickchart, get your shit together.
It has almost entirely stopped working.
Okay.
Wait, no, here we go. We've got something. We've got Bride of Frankenstein. All right, there's one, which is probably going to win. Or The Hitman's Bodyguard starring Ryan Reynolds.
Do we even need to say?
No, it's Bride of Frankenstein. Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian, or Wreck 2?
I saw Wreck, but I didn't see Wreck 2.
It's got to be better than Night at the Museum.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead.
Sinister 2012 or Meet the Fockers?
Sinister.
Sinister, definitely. We haven't talked
That movie
Go ahead.
is so disturbing at some point.
Yeah.
Like with the music is really, really unsettling.
Oh, absolutely. I like that movie a lot.
The second one sucked. Really bad.
We've got Clueless or Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Two good movies.
I'm going to say Clueless because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Clueless is a classic. I think one day people will look back on the Dungeons and Dragons movie and see that that deserves some kind of cult classic status, but it's not Clueless.
Yeah.
Flick Chart's just being super buggy. Let's see here. Pale Rider, Clint Eastwood, 1985, or The Replacement Killers with Mira Sorvino and Chow Yun-fat.
Replacement Killers.
Agreed. Pale Rider is kind of the whole Clint Eastwood Western thing after it's, run its course. Although Unforgiven does bring it back. Yes, I understand. I think Night Nurse is a porn. Why is that on here?
No, Night Nurse a Marvel thing?
I don't think so.
Because there's a character played by Rosario Dawson in Daredevil who is the Night Nurse, and she's from the comic, so maybe
this one pretty much looked like a porn from 1979. I'm just gonna go ahead and guess. The Painted Veil starring Edward Norton or Precious based on the novel Push by Sapphire.
God, do we have to say the whole title every time?
Every time you have to say the whole full title.
Sorry, Gabby, but I'm going to say Precious. I mean, that movie, it's horrifying and it's hard to watch, but
definitely that one. The Painted Veil is a fine looking movie, but it's also a rather dull movie in the end.
Okay.
Gorgeous looking though. Really, the great cinematography. Cocoon, 1985, or The Quiet American starring Michael Caine.
The Quiet American, because Wilford Brimley is younger than I am in that movie.
Which makes no sense.
And looks 10 years older than I do even now.
How is a man who is clearly 75 in his 40s?
Diabetes. I mean, I really don't understand it. Paul Rudd is older than he was in that movie, and Paul Rudd looks 10 years younger.
No, it's nonsense. I'm telling you, it's got to be cigarettes. I blame cigarettes. I really
You're
do.
probably not wrong.
Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason, or Murder at 1600.
I didn't care for The Edge of Reason because I'm terrible like that,
But it's got to be better than Murder at 1600. Murder at
yeah.
1600. I only remember Murder at 1600 because Dennis Miller's in it before I knew he was a piece of shit. And it's so funny watching that movie try to treat him like a serious actor and him just doing his Dennis Miller thing. It was very entertaining, but it's still so bad that I would totally pick Bridget Jones over that.
Yeah, exactly.
The Town with Ben Affleck and Jeremy Renner, or The Killing Fields with Sam Waterston.
The Killing Fields, even though I like The Town.
I'm going with The Town. I never want to see The Killing Fields again, and it's too effective, I guess, in that way. The Town I could watch 1,000 times and find it just as compelling. And The Killing Fields wins.
Fair enough.
All right. Let's see. I don't think that's a TV movie. And Zorro from 1975, I've never seen. So we'll move on. Catch and Release, starring Jennifer Garner, or American Fiction with Jeffrey Wright.
American Fiction.
Definitely. Catch and Release is kind of charming, though.
It's charming, but it's not. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah. Barbie or Jungle Cruise?
I'm sorry. Is that that's the
Rock and
Emily
Emily
Blunt
Blunt?
one?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no, we're not going with that.
No, definitely not.
Barbie is
Barbie is a great movie. Jewel of the Nile or Romeo Must Die?
Jewel of the Nile.
Yeah, Romeo Must Die is just too grim. And Jet Li is not, he's not an actor who can pull off grim.
No.
Let's see here. We've got Rambo First Blood or When in Rome.
First Blood.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It's the only good one of those.
The Eye, starring Jennifer. What's her name? Alba. Jessica
Alba.
Jessica Alba, or The Girlfriend Experience, directed by Steven Soderbergh.
I've never seen that. I don't know if I've ever even heard about it.
That movie's incredible. It stars Sasha Grey, who's a real life porn star, and she plays a sex worker. And she provides this service that is called the Girlfriend Experience, where not only does she have sex with these men, she creates the ideal relationship. So she functions as a girlfriend and a sex worker at the same time, and the various different men who she interacts with have various different ideals of what a girlfriend should be, and the way that she settles into each of those is the crux of the film. It's incredible. Highly recommend that one. Also, that's a real thing in New York City.
Oh no, I've heard of the term. I've just never seen the movie.
Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous, or Porky's 2, The Next Day.
Miss Congeniality 2.
Really? I fucking hate that movie. I'll vote for anything over that piece of shit.
I like that better than I like Porky's 2.
They both suck. So Porky's 2 wins randomly. Race to Witch Mountain with The Rock, or Moon?
Moon.
I know I'm supposed to say Moon, but I actually loved Race to Witch Mountain. I thought it was really fun. I liked the child characters. It felt like old school 70s Disney when they used to make, live action movies for kids like Herbie and the Cat from Outer Space.
Escape to Witch Mountain.
Escape to Witch Mountain. I think that movie is a really great throwback to that. And I thought Moon didn't quite accomplish what Duncan Jones intended.
Fair enough.
It also has the voice of Kevin Spacey, which is going to ruin any movie these days. But Moon does win.
I actually stopped listening to a podcast because they were trying to rehabilitate. This is someone I actually know in real life who was trying to say, well, he lost everything and he was found not guilty. But I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Sorry.
No.
So I unsubscribed from their podcast.
Wow, that's sad.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. I'm going to publish a review of a movie called The Big Kahuna from 2000 because I've been working half-heartedly on various different projects that have been entirely unsuccessful. So that, if that guy's listening who hates me, there you go. I've got multiple unsuccessful products for you to revel in. But I'm writing about the movies of the year 2000, and I'm going to publish that one. And I had to write around Kevin Spacey a lot in that to get to what's good about it. Sergeant Bilko, starring Steve Martin, or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is not hard.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
The Witches, 1990, or Paddington, 2014.
Paddington.
Agreed. Though I am on record, and again, maybe this is why this is why somebody doesn't like me. I may be the only critic in the world who didn't like Paddington 2.
Yeah.
I've never, not even Armand White, I've not found another person who's written a negative review of Paddington 2. I didn't hate it. I just wrote what would be considered, if I were on Rotten Tomatoes, it would be considered a Rotten Tomato. My review. And it might be the only one in the world. So there you go. Mermaids with Cher, or Three Kings with George Clooney.
Ooh. I have a real soft spot for Mermaids because it was the last good movie that Michael Sheffling was in. Three Kings is very good. I'm going to pick Mermaids, though.
I'm picking Three Kings for sure.
I know.
And Three Kings wins. G.I. Jane or American Splendor?
American Splendor.
Yeah, that's a really good movie. It's been years since I've seen G.I. Jane. I can't say if it's really anything good or bad, but I honestly can very easily say that the other movie is very good. All of Me with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin, or A History of Violence with Viggo Mortensen?
History of Violence is a better movie. All of Me is funny. History of Violence.
Yeah, History of Violence is really, really good. All right, last one. This will be this one's going to be painful. Oh wait, no, it changed it. What? Oh, we had two fucking phenomenally terrible movies to choose from. Fine. The Pelican Brief, or It, the TV movie from 1990.
Oh, well, since I've been referencing the Pelican Brief a lot lately due to the Supreme Court, I have a soft. I overall, I think I prefer that It to the newer ones.
Really? Oh wow.
Well, just nostalgia. It's just okay. I like that Pennywise better.
Yeah.
And It too kind of dropped the ball for me.
Okay.
On multiple after multiple viewings, I'm just but the Pelican Brief.
Yeah.
I'm on a John Grisham kick right now. I'm reading a couple of his books, so.
All right. Well, that's our last one. Jeff, thank you. We'll be talking Wolverine and Deadpool next week.
Can't wait, bub. Have a good one, you hack.